This big vision, everybody's going to be out of a job. What's the reality today from your perspective on enterprise AI adoption?
Now implementing what they call measured intelligence to track token costs, because yes, they are skyrocketing, and you're hearing the horror stories of people accidentally spending, I don't know, like $5 million a month or something like that, so just on token output.
You're spinning up the most expensive machine to cook rice. You're using nuclear power to cook rice. That's kind of like what we're doing now.
People plays a deep part of the adoption of AI. They should be able to trust the tools for them to scale the use of AI in an organization.
Hello, everyone. So thank you so much. We're here to have an exciting conversation about enterprise adoption of AI. And one thing we've done is we as a group have discussed the questions, everything, and we promised it'll be a little bit contentious, a little spicy, and do our best. So on that note, maybe what we'll do is we'll do a round of introductions. I prepared some questions. And at the end of the panel, towards the end, we'll have some time for you to ask questions as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to stay ahead and raise your hand. So for me, myself, I'm Jeremy Howe. I'm actually a CEO for Medical Aesthetics Group. And my hobby that I do is that I run Southeast Asia's #1 tech podcast. Shout out to Adriel for being an early supporter and co-host of the podcast. And happy to talk about this panel, so please go ahead. Aravind.
Awesome. Hey guys, I'm Aravind, CTO and co-founder over at Bifrost. What we do at Bifrost is we recreate the world, the physical world, in a simulation, and then we use that simulation to test robotic systems to figure how they will fail and where they will fail. So imagine testing 10,000 possible different futures, and then you can figure out, oh, it's going to fail when it meets a very specific scenario, right? This way, robots don't fail in the real world, they fail in our virtual worlds, right? We serve everyone from folks like NASA to land spacecrafts on Mars, all the way to folks like US Air Force to help prevent certain conflicts, to folks building humanoid robots in houses and factories and science labs, essentially.
Great. Hey guys, my name is Jun Wakabayashi. My headline title is Venture Principal at AppWorks. We're early stage funds and startup accelerator, one of the largest and most active in the regions. Actually, my day job is actually leading partnerships at this company called NECA.ai. We essentially do egocentric data capture to help train physical AI models.
Hello, I'm John. I'm with Converge ICT Solutions. I head the AI engineering team of the company. So we're one of the largest fiber broadband providers here in the Philippines, and we are transitioning from a telco to a telco company.
Fantastic. So, I think what's in front of us is really about, the age of AI and enterprise adoption. And there's this hype, it's like billion-dollar companies with one employee or no employees. This big vision, everybody's going to be out of a job, etc. What's the reality today from your perspective on enterprise AI adoption?
Yeah, so at least from where I am now, the reality in the enterprise is that organizations are careful about adopting AI, specifically for mature organizations where governance and cybersecurity is a strong practice, right? Those teams will ask about the safety and the security of the use of AI, right? So we want to move fast and we want to adopt AI, but we're also concerned about our data. We want to protect our customers' data. We want to make sure that the data of our customers is not used for training the next generation of models, right? So we're balancing, right? We want to move fast, and we're also careful at the same time.
I would add to enterprise is a very fake word, and actually there's a whole spectrum of enterprises. But if you look at the top end, the very large enterprises, there's two big buckets. One bucket is what I call they're doing it just for we need to spend 8% of our R&D on AI. They're just doing a whole bunch of random pilots, trying to shove it into every random place and not going so well. So you'll see all of these startups get lots and lots of pilots, but they don't mature into full level production scale deployments. And then you have some other spectrum, which is mission critical piece, which is We have declining birth rate in Korea, and we don't have enough people to work in these factories. We need something to help us build our cars, right? And then you have folks at like national security, which is like, we don't want to be sending humans into the battlefield, right? This group of people, they are like, we need to get it to work. It's not a nice to have. So the nice to have folks and then like the need to have folks. It was like kind of the split that we're seeing at the moment.
I love that barbell, I think, between virtual organizations, because there's organizations that are really pushing forward. So I'm just curious, are there any interesting or useful enterprise case studies that you've seen, heard, or experienced that could, be directional or show some experience of what enterprise AI adoption could look like?
I think I can get off here because I can give a pretty unique perspective from both the investor side and the operator side. If we kind of look at the cohort of users within the company that have adopted quote unquote AI the quickest and implemented it as a part of their daily workforce, these are by far and large engineers. These are the ones that are going to be eating the lion's share of token costs. Startups, of course, are pioneering the frontier here, but we're actually starting to see a lot of enterprise teams basically using tools like Cursor, for example, Copilot, and OpenAI is one as well, right? It's interesting because if you go into an engineering bullpen now, it actually is starting to mimic what seems like a call center. Engineers are no longer typing much anymore. They're just speaking using voice to code now. They have headsets on and telling their favorite coding Copilot what exactly the code, and they're really just doing review now. That is not a dystopian future. That is here and now. So engineering has actually been the incredible killer feature that all these AI models are now riding off of. You guys are probably seeing a $6 billion acquisition of Cursor right now by, right? Yeah, 60 billion, exactly. 60 bill, right? 60 by SpaceX. So it's phenomenal. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Now we're seeing that now bleed into other parts of an organization, whether it's customer support is a big one, customer success, sales, especially marketing. Now, if you see the breakdown in token costs, the percentages of usage is now going higher and higher. All these other departments, I would say, from some of the startups I've looked at, engineering is accounting for roughly 60 to 80%, but I think that share is actually going to come down very, very quick. And it's not just the startups; they are the ones leading the charge, but enterprises as well.
I would say 90% of the world, all the problems are not really engineering, coding specific. When you talk about coding stuff, it's really straightforward. But when you talk about all the non-engineers, most of the world, they haven't set the expectations of what AI is. A lot of the job is really just how do you set expectations with these C-level folks and these Fortune 500 companies. What is your AI system going to do? Right? It's how is it going to work? We have this insane expectation you need to meet, but then the technology at a specific level. So how do you bridge that gap? How do you set a realistic expectation? And a lot of it is just if you can pull that off, adoption gets really, really good because it's just everyone's on the same page.
So what's holding back enterprise adoption? I mean, is it, we need to give engineers more headsets to whisper into their AI agents? Is it management? What's holding back enterprises from actually adopting AI?
For me, it would be the organization itself and the people. The people plays a big part of the adoption of AI. They should be able to trust the tools for them to scale the use of AI in an organization, right? So we need to scale up on education, upskill room, for example, in the areas of where I work, right? So for example, in the areas of governance, the areas of cybersecurity, how can those teams create guardrails or policies if they are not at least AI savvy, right? So we need to be in that level for them to create guardrails and policies that make sense so that the company can move forward with the at least goals, risk revenue, something, etc. What at the same time being safe things of AI.
Very dependent on the industry and the application itself. For us, the biggest blocker is always risk, right? An LLM, when it fails, it gives you an error on the screen or hallucinates or something. But when like a physical AI fails, it's like could be loss of human life. It could be $1 million worth of inventory is lost. It's very real losses. You can't just undo it, Control Z, right? So like risk is a very big thing. So it's like, okay, how do you risk this thing? How do you scale up your infrastructure to make sure that, okay, if you're going to be spending $1 billion trying to buy and deploy these humanoid robots, what are like safety guarantees? Right? So I think all these things are things that they have to like figure out, like what's our framework? How are we going to measure these risks? How are we going to measure reliability?
So we're talking about measuring reliability, measuring this, measuring that. How should companies measure success from your perspective for enterprise AI?
I think we can separate this into two buckets. One is just going to be personal utility, right? It's just like, wow, I just sped up my time. My output just 2 to 3x relative to what I could have done before. But I think on a management perspective, and this is something that is a work in progress, and there's a lot of startups right now out there building measurement tools. I know RAM, for example, is now implementing what they call measured intelligence to track token costs, because yes, they are skyrocketing. And you're hearing the horror stories of like people accidentally spending, I don't know, like $5 million a month or something like that, so just on token output, right? So you do have to put those guardrails in place. Some of the founders that I've spoken with are now actually capping the budgets that teams can use with tokens. We are now getting to that point, right? And you have to also be able to justify the token usage and the amount of money you are spending on it. What exactly? Try to be as clear as possible. What are the clear outcomes and how you essentially quantify it. I think the quantification of your output is incredibly important. But all of this, everyone feels like they're being more productive. But I would say team leaders and founders and CEOs, make sure you guys try to put a number to it so you actually can justify relative to the cost.
I don't think you have to reinvent the wheel. I think it's like the same thing that has worked for like traditional software. Just like you write the user story, like what does this thing need to do for you? And how well can it do the thing and how much money is spending on it? It's like super simple. But I think along the way, there's a lot of philosophy that comes into it. It's like, we need to be token max, we need the XYZ. And it's more just like about the effort side and less about the output side. It's like, come back. It's like, okay, let's start with outputs. Write up the user stories. What do you want to achieve? What is your ROI? How much money are you spending? Do all these measures, right? It can't be measured.
So, I would go as far as saying for a ultimate measure for the ROI of AI, right? For me, it goes back to your customers, right? Are your customers happy because of the products and the services that you provide to your customers, right? So, customer happiness, if it's even measurable for you, for your customers.
So what's the view of like token adoption versus costs? Because you're mentioning about token maxing, you mentioned about crazy bills. Like, how should people be thinking about that ROI?
I think it's relative to the cost and the size and the problem that you're solving. Let's say, for example, you cancer research. You can spend you do a giant training run, or you want to do like protein folding to figure out like something. It's worth spending a lot of money on it. But if you're not just doing like an Excel sheet, and like you want to optimize your financial model, you don't need such a large model. So I think there's this like concept where people are saying, take these large models and like just token max. But actually, when you look at a lot of industrial and real work, we actually don't need these giant, large foundational models. You can take a much smaller model that's so much more efficient. And the cost is so much more efficient for these like routine, simple tasks. You don't need a frontier model because your work is actually pretty simple. Right, so it's like you will see this stratification. We're already seeing it now. When people deploy different types of model for different types of work, it's a little more refined when your usage is so high. Right, so you start up with the frontier model, your skyrockets, your prices skyrocket. Then you come out and okay, let's optimize this, you distill a model, it becomes super cheap. You can bring it down by like 1/100th of the cost.
For me, when you assess a token, it represents capability, right? So whether you use the token for a good use case, solve a great problem, or to solve a stupid problem, right? Right? So the ROI, it's up to you, right? So, but the way I look at it is when you possess a credit or a token, it's a currency. It's a currency for you. And you can use the token to solve your
great problems. It's up to you to use that and put that in good use.
It's like you have all these like AWS machines. You're spinning up the most expensive machine to like cook rice. Like you're using nuclear power to cook rice. That's kind of like what we're doing right now. You know these models are so powerful, but it's like, oh, make this sentence better.
We've all been there. Let's be honest. I'll go on that rabbit hole.
Help me rewrite this business email.
29.
So, I'm just curious that for your individual organizations, where are you seeing the ROI now internally? Is it engineering, marketing? Is it by function? Is it by problem? Is it by persona? Where do you see the ROI in your own organizations today?
Yeah, I can speak to it just it's building on top of my earlier points. Now on the operator side, I'm also using a lot of these tools to accelerate my own personal workflows. Of course, engineering is always going to be the ones consuming the majority of token consumption in an organization's budget. But for me, I'm doing a lot of sales and GTM. And I had to tell you, I've been using some of these tools to do outreach. And I basically have several agents just running in the background for me, compiling lists of contacts all over Southeast Asia. So for example, right now, I've been trying to strike up partnerships with universities all over the region so that we can do a lot of data capturing in the wet labs. And historically, if I had to do all that by hand, or I had to rely on colleagues to do that, they would just manually search the web. Oh, this university, that you do, who's the contact? Let me get their email. Let me get their phone number. Let me try to send an email. All of that now can be automated at the touch of finger right now. Just a couple of prompts, and it's just running in the background for me 24/7, right? Which would have otherwise taken several hours or days, or if not, several people to do a parallel. So these are the type of workflows that I am actually really happy to automate away. And you always have to think to yourself, like, am I trying to do more or more with less? It's actually a philosophical question at every single company. For us, we tend to do more with more. And so actually, we don't get any less work, we just get more work. But yeah, those are just examples of what I'm using in my personal workflows to actually see direct ROI from a time saving standpoint.
And for us, it's just ROI. You can deliver more units of value to the customer, and therefore they pay us more money, so revenue, right? It's like we're spending X amount of money doing something, our revenue has to also go up equivalent order of magnitude, right? And I think the other one that maybe not a lot of people do is building like this like council of experts that you can treat as like a strategic thought partner. So you give it a big, hairy, open round, like, how should I don't know, grow revenue from 50 million to 150 million in 2 months? Right, and let it go away, do this like deep thinking exercise for you. And you give each one a very different persona, right? And you now have that in your pocket all the time to answer these very big, hairy, large questions, where the answer is not straightforward and there are multiple right answers as well, right? And I think the ROI there is just, you're saving a lot of really compute of time, and you can go through a lot of these harder problems much faster. They will not be like the right answer all the time, but they just help you explore the search space of ideas that can go down.
So for many people here, everyone represents an organization, runs their own organization. I'm sure a lot of them are thinking, wow, that sounds really incredible to have, a co-CEO to figure out how to double or triple revenue, or to improve and do research or the groundwork, or to figure out cost structures and, get engineering done. How should companies think about building versus buying? Can they go to you with this, hey, can we buy what Aravind you already built? Should they build it themselves? How do they get started? Show of hands, who here has a Anthropic account? Who here has a Gemini account? And who here has a ChatGPT account? Okay. So, and who of you has an autonomous AI agent working in the background now? Okay. So how should people be thinking about building versus buying?
Yeah, so just like any other technology, right? If it's a tool that gives you differentiation among your competitors, then you should definitely build it, right? And if you're concerned about the time it takes to deliver value, right? Of course, you need to buy. But in general sense, the way I want to look at it is, we all have the same access to the models, right? The Robotics to OpenAI, the rest of the frontier models, right? We all have access to that. the big question is how can we use our data so that the AI that we have now delivers more value to us, more useful to us, right? It's a question of how much we can provide data so that it's more customized to our use cases, how much we can orchestrate the AI or the agents, right? So those two things, data and then the orchestration.
So the way I would think about it is it's quite, as you mentioned, it's no different than the build or buy discussion in any other paradigm shift. Number one, in this specifically for AI, is like, are you looking at replicating a generic workflow, or is it going to be a custom workflow that no one else could build? If it's a generic workflow, just use something off the shelf. Why would you waste your time and resources to do it? But if it's a work for a very specific your organization, that's when you want to think about investing resources and building it and potentially even licensing at one point. But you're solving your own problem at that point.
I think one frustration that people often have is they feel like they can't really buy the right AI thing, right? So they're buying software as a service, that makes sense. There's all this cool AI stuff that's coming out, but people can't feel like they can buy, I don't know, a template or an AI, I don't know what, native SaaS that actually does the work they want to do without them actually having to build it themselves. So it feels like there's a chasm.
I feel like that was always the challenge of SaaS, right? Because it's off-the-shelf tools and it's never going to fit your needs 100%. But I think that's the beauty of the AI era, which is essentially personalization at scale. So maybe it's not one or the other. Maybe it's something that you build something to take off the shelf. And the great thing about all the off-the-shelf tools now, they're very malleable. So maybe you just take that, or maybe you take the open source framework and you just build on top of it. The thing about like AI in this current paradigm is like the sky's the limit in terms of what you can do. You can vibe code anyone, but of course vibe coding at production scale for enterprise especially is much different. I would say start on a very, very small scale first, rope in the engineers who know what they're doing, build security harnesses around it, and then you can kind of go from there, right? But there's no excuse in this age to not kind of experiment on your own first, and at least find something that is more suitable to your needs. Like I said, AI is personalization at scale, so it's a great time to really take it as you are.
I'll say, like, also the state industry is, the promise is personalization, but almost every large AI company has like a services. OpenAI has like a services division. Every big org they go to, every government they go to, there's like a lot of customization and make it work for that specific use case, specific organization. So it's like, yes, we have the superpower thing, but getting it to work and like delivering the ROI for a specific enterprise org, there's still some services work that a lot of folks do. Which is why FDEs are so popular now. It stands for like forward deployed engineers. Calendar made it popular. Everyone now has like a forward deployed engineer for any kind of service. It's just like, services are back, right? It's like B2B sales are like, oh, services that, but now it's like, oh yeah, services is like the premium because you get it to work, you set up the infrastructure, set up workflows, and then it shoots along.
So a quick last question, keep the sentences short, and then we'll open up for a few questions. So if you have a question, feel free to think about it and really raise your hand. So my last question I have to you would be, any advice you would give yourself if you went back 3 years ago? I know, it's 23 years ago.
Buy more NVIDIA stock and SanDisk and EBS. Still not too late to buy, guys. EBS, let's go.
And saying the same thing.
I'm poor. Well, I think on a serious note is, I think 3 years back, as in, I think I would have done the same thing, right? Like, I would have started this company in the space that I'm excited about. Like, just focus on an area you're excited about and just spend time of working on that area. Because if you're like just excited by the work, your day-to-day is just so much more fun, right? And you're just excited to work on the thing. So just pick something that excites you and just work on it. Because I think this world changes so quickly. It's like there's a new hot thing every single month or week, right? So really just focus on like what excites you and just like spend the time to learn more about it.
I think for me, as I kind of look at the penetration of AI tools in this world of abundance, I think there is an argument to be made about more and more offline connections and the value that it brings to people. I think that's going to be the one defensible thing as well at AI is your relationships and your judgment /wisdom/experience. But if anything, I would be focusing more. I mean, if we forget at the end of the day, like these tools are here to work for us, right? So we are trying to live a better version of our lives, right? Don't get sucked into all this FOMO and feel like you're never good enough. Try to see it as a glass half full. Try to live the best life that you want. Don't forget your values and invest in your relationships. Otherwise, it's very easy to forget about that because that's the one thing that's going to stand the test of time in this age of abundance.
Yeah, so I started learning about AI during the time when OpenAI grew up I think it was in 2022, December of 2022, right? So ever since that time, I started to learn anything about AI, right? So for me, if I were to go back, I would have to say to myself to try harder and learn more about the AI. There's a lot of things that's happening now in the world of AI, agents, harnesses, fully autonomous systems, scaling things in the use cases of the enterprise. So a lot of things to learn and a lot of opportunities there, right? So I would go as hard as I can to learn new things.
Be curious. Be curious about everything.
Amazing. Any questions that people have? Feel free to raise your hand. Yes, go ahead.
Well, given that a lot of the big companies, that's where it was. Yeah, you've been talking about customization and trying to incorporate it with your enterprise, but given with the hyperscale, the shipment of these big companies, how are we assured that it's not going to be a moat in the next 6 months? We're not going to be featured and like out of existence. Because recently I've been seeing like Midjourney have been actually going through like into medical, and that I didn't see it coming, and that a lot of like the newest model of Anthropic and OpenAI that has good memory as well for harness, and I feel like somewhat it's kind of hard right now to choose which field of AI you're gonna be getting into.
So the answer is like, is always, you should be picking an idea that won't get bitter lessened essentially. And the whole idea is that if models get better in like 5 years, will your business go away? Not even 5 years, it'll be 5 months, right? Will your model go away, right? Or will your business model go away, sorry, right? And the whole thing you should be thinking through is that, okay, what are the modes that are maybe non-technical per se? So it's like, okay, it could be a hardware device. It could be a specific type of customization or service that you're doing. It could be that you're owning a vertical and you're bringing certain value propositions that other people can't. So for example, that, if I'm going to do something specifically for law, it has to be hyper-specific for the use case of law, where you're bringing in a lot of other things that people wouldn't go out of their way to do, right? It's like you have to solve an adjacent hard problem. Let's just say, I'm doing AI for life sciences. Right? So, okay, can you source the right type of hard data sets for life sciences that is very specific to the vertical that you're going in? And you need to build a whole bunch of frameworks and infrastructure around it that are not the model, right? So it's like everything but the model is like, everything else is like a harness. So it's like building out like a really, really good harness, building out a really, really good go-to-market, being in the right rooms. And I think the most important of all is like branding. If you can own a space, both ideologically and also like be in all the right rooms, sure, someone else may have the right model, but they will pick you. And this is one of the reasons why Salesforce is still so widely used today. It is not the best software. There are better softwares out there for like CRMs, but they have built like that really good brand that a lot of people still trust, right? They may not last for a long time, but they still have significant market share, right? So I think brand is very, very under-indexed. And doing that work of go-to-market, so hard, especially in like high signal, high noise environment like today. Right? So even less than that.
So I second that. But one thing that's going to be defensible in this age of AI, the age of Anthropics and OpenAI as well, is distribution. That's the one thing that they lack. The challenge with guys like OpenAI and Anthropic is they go both wide and deep. So you have to go even deeper, right? So you have to make sure you entrench yourself with your users, make sure you always have access to them. And that's the one thing that's going to protect you. It's basically like the age-old problem, the age-old David versus Goliath, enterprise versus startup. It's always going to be a race between how fast and how quickly an enterprise innovates. Innovates versus how fast a startup finds distribution. So as long as you can lock in distribution, then you're going to be golden. And how do you block in distribution? Make sure you're building something that they love, want to need, and can't live without. Simple as that. The principle still hold true. It's just hard these days.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody. And I'll see you next time around the panel.